listening to 7, and we're interviewing Raz Wickham. But I would like to read this first. KOPN is one of 92 area not-for-profit service organizations participating in Como Gives, the Columbia, Missouri area end-of-year fundraising campaign, which facilitates your giving through the entire month of December. Visit comogives.com to help support KOPN and the other organizations valued by you and your neighbors here in Columbia for the valuable services that they provide to increase the quality of life in our wonderful community. Visit often, give as you can, what you can, and reach out to your family, your friends, and neighbors to join in supporting these efforts. Tune into KOPN for interviews with representatives from these organizations about the work that they do for our community. Go to comogives.com and donate. And so we are currently interviewing Raz Wickham from The Edge of Beyond, singer, songwriter, author. Now we just heard Raz, the singer-songwriter part. Wish I had the lyrics to
I'll have to get them to you then.
Yeah, to read. I would read them during my show in the evening when I play, because you have some lyrics in there I'd love to read out loud. I think you have Shakespeare in there.
They're very political.
And you've got do you have any other authors other than Shakespeare that have influenced you in the music part of it? Let's talk about the music part of it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, as far as authors, not so much, but musically, I mean, my favorite overall band has always been Megadeth, but I'm heavily influenced by artists such as Michael Jackson, Beethoven, John Williams, Hans Zimmer. I mean, the list goes on.
Good. That's good. And who played the instruments on this particular?
All the instruments were done by me except for a couple of lead parts, and then I had backup with 2 other people.
What instruments do we have on that piece?
We've got bass guitar, we've got rhythm guitar, lead guitar, drums, synth, choir. I try to fill it up so that you get basically a symphonic edge.
Are you self-taught, or did you take lessons, or what?
I've never taken lessons. The most I ever had was my older brother, John, had showed me a few Megadeth songs years ago, and then I just took it from there, started reading tablature, and I can play very well by sight and sound, so yeah, I'm self-taught. Basically everything you see from this had nothing to do with the college education. I am self-taught with writing and playing.
So you read music?
I can't.
Okay, when you said sight, I don't know what that means.
Well, basically, like if I watch someone on stage, I can tell what they're doing.
Oh wow.
But I can't read sheet music. That's my downfall.
That's okay. With listening to that.
But you don't have to read sheet music to write great music, so.
Right on. That's cool. I like to hear that. That gives me hope. That's cool. And so the name of that song again was The Lords of Chaos?
It's just Lords of Chaos.
And why is it called that one?
Basically, that was my interpretation of how our society is right now, how it could be middle class or even poor, but how society is trying to rise up against the 1% because we've had our heads held underwater for so long that we're just tired of it. So we want to take these Lords of Chaos down so that we can bring back our freedom, so that it's actually the people running the government. It's not the other way around.
Okay. And that's what that song is talking about.
One of the many things.
One of the many things. And it goes into the, I guess, these people in the book, in the story that they mine the crystals. They mine the crystals, and they're the 99%.
Right.
And the crystals. Who cares about crystals? What's the crystals do in this novel? Why are they?
It's because when Earth evolved after the Great Cataclysm, the energy contained within, they used it to rebuild society. So it's a part of their everyday technology as well as their currency. So it's important to them to always have that and harvesting it and using it humans to mine it.
Kind of like the Atlanteans, I think they used crystals, or that novel Dune, they used spice. Is it similar kind of? So it's just an energy source.
Right.
Okay. And it also powers up a bunch of other stuff. What kind of food do they eat?
Basically whatever they get their hands on. I mean, look at what we eat now. I mean, they still live off of animals such as, eating meat and whatnot. But when you think of Earth being evolved, there's going to be so much more plantations than what we have now, and also they're not killing their crops like we're doing with things like Monsanto and whatnot.
Okay. And you have villains and you have heroes in the book, I guess.
Oh yeah, both sides of the coin.
Okay. And I'm holding the first novel, and it's a good size. It's real thick. And you just came out with the second one?
Yes, October 24th this year, and the third one will
Can
be...
you tell us about the second one?
Yes, the second one is called Wings of Destruction, and aesthetically, I followed kind of the same path as what people like Christopher Nolan did with his Dark Knight trilogy, where, Batman Begins is more of an origin story, and then by the time you got to the Dark Knight, the scope of things had gotten so much bigger and much more political. So Wings of Destruction follows in the same vein with, having the story of TEOB get bigger and also more political. But it also leaves the ending the way that it does so that it sets it up perfectly for the third iteration.
Okay, so the book 1, book 2, book 3, the first book basically talks about what versus the second book?
The first one is more about setting up the world, introducing it to the reader as well as the characters, and setting up the main conflict. And then by the second one, since you already know the characters, you can just dive right into the politics and more of what's going on in this particular war, instead of trying to set up the, all the character development that was already set up in the first one. And while there is a lot more character development in the second one, you're seeing more of a natural progression instead of having to be spoon-fed, who these characters are and why they're doing what they're doing.
In the first book?
I'm talking about in the progression to the second one, you're not having to have as much of that spoon-fed to you, because by that point you already know the characters.
So you cannot pick up the second book without picking up the first book. Is that what you're saying?
I imagine you could still enjoy it, but it's episodic, just like Star Wars and other movies.
That's the way you want to do it. That's the way you want to do it.
Right.
Okay. So and then the second book is compared to the third book. What's the third book? I mean...
The third one is where you get into more of, like, if it was a movie, it would be more of the epic disaster film, where things get even bigger because you're having to tie things up, go full circle, and since this is dealing with a war, the war gets much bigger, too.
And what is the war?
The war is basically how, when the champions get involved with trying to take down the universal threat, they start to realize that they're fighting for the wrong side because humans need to be freed because they've been enslaved for generations. So they get caught in the middle of having their own leaders turn on them because they've had a change of heart in what they're doing. So it becomes this whole thing of them being caught in the middle of their own cause and what the villains are fighting for. So then by the third one, you have to tie all of that up and try to find out, okay, well, what happens? Do these humans get free? Where does Victor stand by that point? Especially after losing so much with the story progressing. So it's definitely a hero's journey, but taught in a new, fresh way.
So Victor is the main character?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have female characters in...
This story actually has more prominent female characters than any other franchise in existence.
Could you say that again for people who can't believe what they're hearing?
This story has more prominent female roles than any other franchise in existence, which was actually one of my goals when I first created The Edge of Beyond in 1997. Now it's becoming more of a fad with film, and I'm glad to see more female roles on the big screen, but a lot of times they're doing it just for cash grab, whereas, back then I wanted this because I thought, why can't I showcase the females as equally as I can the males? And that's also why, if you look on the spine of our book, just the name or the acronym TEOB, it's half blue and half pink, just like our symbol. It's showing the equality between male and female, and the importance of their role in society.
Okay, and you've got, I guess the villain is in black, the suit, the armor.
You're talking about
the villain at the top?
Yeah, with the red wings.
Okay, and then there's another guy in green, and that green is a villain color or a hero color in this particular
Well,
novel?
he's definitely not a villain, but it's more of an earth tone. It also represents wisdom and experience.
Okay. And I think I didn't see it at first, but the more I looked at the cover, I saw it. Is that a dragon or what?
That is a half dragon, half feline creature that we call the seraphine or a seraph.
Okay. And the art is like in the back. You've got another piece of artwork, and I looked at it. I don't know, a bunch of times, and then the more you look at it, the more you see the detail. Because I didn't know that he was holding something in his outstretched palm until like the
It's an angelic angel figure.
10th time I looked at it.
Which every back cover image that we do, it represents a certain key scene in each book.
Okay, well we've got about 10 to 12 more minutes to the interview. Do you want to play another song?
Sure.
Okay, which track?
We can play track 2, and this is the official theme that was created for TEOB, and it's also the theme that plays on a loop at every interactive event that we do. And surprisingly enough, you would actually be surprised how many people it pulls in to buy a book when they hear it.
So track 2, and let's